Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. On behalf of the iMoot team, I'd like to welcome Kristina from New Zealand. She'll be presenting on Mahara today. This is, I believe, your second presentation, but you're not a newbie to iMoot. So with no further, go ahead, get started. There you go.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Carrie, and I'd like to welcome everybody who is in the session today. Some newcomers, but also a bunch of people that I've seen in previous presentations, iMoots, and a couple even in person, which is absolutely fantastic. As I said just before, if you would like to see the presentation kind of across your full screen, then please feel free to use the link that is in the chat. And if you do want to earn a Twitter badge from iMoot, then please do feel free to tweet using the iMoot16 hashtag. And if you want to tag anything from me or for the Mahara project, then you find the other three there as well with #Mahara @Mahara project and my personal Twitter handle @Anitzerk, which is just Kristina backwards. So today we are going to look at Mahara kind of more from the project perspective rather than the perspective of what we can actually do with the software in terms of portfolio examples and how we can integrate it with Moodle in the sense that I'll be showing you some screenshots, because I do have the other session for that, taking learning to the next level. And since I do have two sessions which deal with Mahara, I wanted to do something slightly different so that it's not just a simple repetition. But just very briefly about myself, I started my Mahara journey back in Luxembourg, so in the northwest on that map, and had been using it at the University of Luxembourg in a Bachelor in Educational Science program, when the professor that I was working for asked that we look for a different e-portfolio system to the one that the university had in use back at that time. And so in 2008, we introduced Mahara to the first group of students and then worked with the entire study program and used it for electronic portfolio purposes that were an integral part of the study program. And then in mid-2010, I moved all the way across the world to New Zealand, to Wellington to be specific, and started working for Catalyst, which is an open source company. And Catalyst is the core maintainer of the Mahara project. So we provide all the security updates, they bring out the new feature releases, and do generally well over 90% of the work on the software. And of course, we also, like Moodle, have contributors from around the world that make new features happen, make improvements to it, translate it into other languages, and also provide plugins. So these days I'm working primarily on Mahara. I still have a little bit of foothold in Moodle, but not very much, and therefore can really concentrate on the advancement of the software in my role as Mahara project lead and also community facilitator, so that we can help people around the world working with Mahara. So I already briefly mentioned that Mahara is an e-portfolio system, and so what does a good definition of portfolio mean? One of the very earliest definitions of a portfolio, in the sense that we are using it in education, that I could find is from the Oxford English Dictionary, and it says, a portfolio is a selection of artwork, reproductions, etc., contained in such a case. Hence, a collection of samples of a person's work, typically intended to convey the quality and breadth of his or her achievement in a particular field. So while the word portfolio, in Italian portfolio, had already been recorded back in 1556, it wasn't really until 1818 in English that this definition came about. In English, the word portfolio had also already been used since 1713, so it's definitely not a new concept. But there it was rather just a collection of items, of maps, of artifacts. But what is really intriguing with this definition here, where we had the first occurrence in this sense in 1813, is that it shows the breadth of his or her achievement in a particular field. So that we are not just collecting things, but really showcasing our work and the progress we've made and our achievements. And that's where Mahara comes in. So Mahara is a Maori word and means to think, thinking, or thought. And that is a very apt name for an e-portfolio system, because it is not just a case where you store your achievements, but an portfolio is more than that. It is also the reflection you have that goes with those achievements, so that a viewer knows why you've done things, how something came about. And of course, also for you, if you don't want to share your portfolio with others, or and just want to keep it for yourself, that you know why something had been done. So in some ways, in many ways, Mahara is different from other e-portfolio systems in the sense that it is very learner-centered. So instead of trying to replicate functionality that we see in a learning management system such as Moodle, we are actually looking to be complementary to an LMS. Oftentimes you have portfolio systems that focus on assessment, that replicate quite a bit of LMS functionality, and therefore are really a hybrid between a portfolio and what an LMS does. In our case, though, we are quite separate from an LMS because we try to be complementary. Things you can do on an LMS are very much different from what you would do in Mahara. So we don't have any quizzes or a gradebook or lots of areas where you upload various different resources. Instead, we are focusing on what the learner can do. How the learner can progress in their work and how they can showcase their learning, their achievements, and reflect on them. And this thinking was developed directly at the beginning of the project, back in the conceptualization phase, which was 2005. And the project itself started in 2006. And was initially a collaboration between a number of universities in New Zealand who had seen that the LMS doesn't offer them all that they needed, and that they really wanted to have more of a personal learning environment for students, where they can also record non-formal and informal learnings and not just follow the formal learning path that was given to them in an LMS. And so while we do focus on the learner-centeredness, Mahara is not just used for recording non-formal and informal learning activities, but it can be used in many different ways. And here is just a very brief overview for the few cases that Mahara can be used, but this is not an exhaustive overview. So you can use it to showcase yourself online, to have an online identity, which is becoming more and more important. You can use it also for collaborative projects. While in the past, oftentimes a portfolio always seemed to be an individual's person's achievements and showcase, in Mahara you can actually work collaboratively. You can work together to produce a product or a project and reflect on that. You can use it as a language portfolio to showcase your competencies or showcase other competencies. So portfolios are quite frequently used amongst hairdressers, for example, or plumbers or nurses who need to showcase what they have achieved in order to then retain their registration, for example. You can, of course, also use it for assignments, and that's where the connection to Moodle comes in, which we will be looking at briefly later on. You can also use it for research progress. showcasing that, letting your supervisor know where you've gotten up to already, what still needs to be done. It can be an internship tracker. And then from there going on into a career portfolio. So really be used for showcasing your achievements in order to get a job. Or you can use it for tenure and promotion purposes. And not to forget for professional development purposes as well. And if you do want to take a look at some of these examples, to take a look at what people do with Mahara, how they create their portfolios, how they put it in, then please do take a look at the link to the other iMoot session where I have those examples in there. And Colin, if you do want to put the link to your CMOD portfolio in there, or anybody else who already created a portfolio, please feel free to do so as well. So kind of just going back a little bit of what you can do with Mahara and how it might work. The next few things might sound very familiar to you, especially everybody here who is already a Moodle expert or has been using Moodle for a little bit of time already, because the concepts are very similar. So Mahara is also mobile. You don't just create your portfolio on a desktop or laptop computer anymore, but you can create it on a tablet or can even use your phone for creating portfolios, updating it, and engaging with others by leaving comments on their portfolios, participating in forum discussions, or just checking out any messages that people might have left. So we are similar to Moodle, we are also employing the Bootstrap framework. And last year in October, we changed our entire CSS to use Bootstrap. So if you're already familiar with working with Bootstrap in Mahara, in Moodle, you can also apply similar concepts then in Mahara and get your theming done. Later this year, hopefully still in the Northern Hemispheric summer or the Southern Hemispheric winter, we will have our updated mobile application available, which we'll most likely call Mahara Mobile to keep it simple. Currently, we have an Android application, Mahara Droid, and an iOS application, Portfolio App. But what we are trying to do is to consolidate those and make one application available that is then accessible across platforms, so that we pretty much maintain one code and then can roll out an Android application, an iOS application, or other platforms as well. And that will all be JavaScript based with Reveal.js, and pretty much be a possibility for you to collect learning evidence offline and then upload it to Mahara when you're back on a Wi-Fi connection or on a 3G or 4G connection. And so that makes collecting and also starting reflection on those learning evidences very easy when you are in an area where there's no reception, but you do want to get started with your portfolio or continue working on your portfolio instead of kind of having to wait until you're back in the internet civilization world. And Mahara is also themable. So you can create your own themes, you can update existing themes, and as I mentioned, use Bootstrap for that. We have a number of built-in themes that can serve different purposes, namely just the default theme on the top left. Then we have a theme for younger learners, though I've also already seen that at the university level. And then we have two other themes that have a different color scheme, one darker theme and one very light blue theme that can be used. And these can, of course, also be adapted. Now, when you just want to work with those four themes, your users still have the possibility to personalize their portfolio more. Because oftentimes people want to give a bit more of their personality into portfolios, for example, use different fonts or different colors, make the font bigger, or have a background image there. And that's where you can use skins and pretty much go crazy and really let your personality shine. But if you're not happy with any of those built-in themes, there are already a number of themes contributed to the by the community, and these can also be installed. Or you can use our starter theme kit to get your theme, or to have an easy way of at least bringing your university colors or organization colors and logo into the theme without making too many adjustments. Now, just to give you a brief look at what some of these different custom themes can look like, here's an example of the biggest Mahara instance that we are aware of. It is myportfolio.school.nz here in New Zealand, that we also support at Catalyst. And that theme is very colorful because it is for primary to secondary students, but also teachers use it quite extensively for their professional development purposes. So, for example, a lot of schools use it for their registered teacher criteria, which are now actually the practicing teacher criteria, and also for other professional development, for example, for the National Aspiring Principals program, where they are required to keep a portfolio on My Portfolio in order to participate in the program, to communicate with the other participants, and to keep their reflections in place. And then also in that way, have an online community available that is safe for them, where only they have access to it. The next one is from the Hoeppner-Mahara. Again, you see it looks very different from what any of those standard themes look like. This is a slightly older version of Mahara, but you can see that not just the colors were changed, but also the icons and the middle part, and therefore more information is given by what the organization needs. Here we have Carleton University in Canada, a very simple theme that reflects the university colors and the university brand, and is really taken back and then eventually lets the content shine once we are available or once we are able to view a portfolio in it. And just to show you a very different homepage that can also be created by simply changing the styles and making some simple adjustments. This is from Bournemouth University, and therefore kind of also reveals more of the modern look and feel from websites that we are expecting these days. And so Mahara is themable, and Mahara is also customizable. And like Moodle, it is open source, so you can pretty much change anything and everything that you like, and create your own customizations, create your own functionality. And here, for example, we have Workflow. That is the Mahara site at the University of the Arts London. And there you see the homepage, and you're very welcome to, again, as I said earlier, click on it later on. Because what Mike Kelly did when he was at the university was to create a functionality to showcase portfolios directly on the homepage. So showcase public portfolios that are on the site, because they're using the portfolio for design students. And so showcasing their work is very important. And so you have lots and lots of examples that you can see. He also created the Skills Share plugin, which allows you to kind of look for people or advertise skills that you have, and then allow people to search for those so that you might either get a job or get a small commission, which of course is also important for design students. We list our plugins currently not in a plugin database, but rather just on a simple wiki page. But that wiki page does grow from time to time. And we have plugins available to connect to cloud repositories for file storage, to additional authentication methods. There's a way to connect to different learning management systems, and also certain block types so that you can work more easily with chemical formulas, for example, or bring in mind mapping tools and so on. So please do check them out if you already have a Mahara instance and like to enhance it a bit. And we also have translations that can be used directly in Mahara, and we have a number of wonderful translators that keep the translations up to date at all times so that the community can view Mahara in all their languages. Now we are getting to the part that is getting more interesting, especially for the Moodle community, I think, namely that Mahara can be integrated with other systems. And from the start, the most obvious choice was of course, Moodle, because Moodle was used quite heavily in New Zealand at the time by the universities. And also being an open source LMS, we looked directly into integrating with it and making it easy for people to go from Mahara to Moodle, and then from Moodle also back in the future. That functionality was developed going from Moodle to Mahara later on in terms of sending content, but initially you could already authenticate very easily between the two. And that connection had been realized via MNet, so Moodle networking. But in the future, it'll be done via web services. So currently, the Mahara team is working on really getting more and more functionality of MNet, so that we use web services for that, and are really in a position where we can replace MNet. So we've made some big strides over the last few months in that, and that functionality is currently in review so that we have an easier interface of connecting one application with another through web services, and also have SAML, which is used for single sign-on, for example, integrated directly in core Mahara in order to make it easier also to set Mahara and single sign-on then to other systems. Make it easier to set those things up. Now, what can you do specifically with Moodle? Well, if you're on the Moodle site, besides being able to log into Mahara via a specific MNet link and being logged in directly, you can send assignment files, you can send your forum posts, you can send your glossary entries, and also your badges to Mahara. The badges need to go via your backpack first. But then, since Mahara 1604, we have the possibility to display badges without the need for a plugin. So that functionality is then built in. And if other Moodle plugin developers allow the exporting of their content to their portfolio repositories, then they can also be moved into Mahara. But we can also do the other way around, namely that we can use Mahara for assessment purposes in Moodle. And that is realized via the Mahara assignment submission plugin that is available via the Moodle plugin database. And that allows you to create an assignment, and instead of making a file, the way that students can submit their assignment, you would use a portfolio. And then when students get into your assignment, they simply select the portfolio that they'd like to submit that, and then you can view it. And you can grade it, you can give feedback on it, and you can also lock it so that students can't make any changes to it while you're reviewing it. And then once you're done, students will get it back. You cannot, to my knowledge, use Mahara with the workshop activity in Moodle. There's only the possibility to use it with the assignment plugin currently, but that functionality could be built if there's interest for it. So as you can see from these two possibilities, or three actually, if we also count the authentication method, Moodle and Mahara joined forces to make and provide a better learning environment. Because on the one hand, we have the very good functionalities from Moodle, where you can manage the learning of your learners, where you can guide them, where you can create a learning path for them to go through a course, where you can provide resources, where you can allow them to participate in activities that enhance their learning. And of course, where you can also keep track of their learning, where you can grade them and so on. With the portfolio, where the students can be a bit freer, where they can decide what they want to do, how they want to structure their portfolios, and where they can also create other portfolios that are not related to your class. So they can create portfolios also for just for themselves. They can create portfolios for other classes. So a portfolio is not specifically tied to a particular course. And so that integration, of course, can be taken further even with web services, so that you could, for example, also enroll students directly into groups in Mahara, and those groups could correspond to classes, and where you can do other things that might be needed at your organization. And like Moodle, Mahara also has a user community that works very well together online, and talks things through, discusses things, asks questions online, and makes all those things freely available to the rest of the community. And for an open source project, community is actually really, really important. So it's not so much that we kind of put the software in the foreground when we talk about the open source project, but rather everybody who's involved in it. And so it's not just the developers that contribute to a software project. It is a lot of other people, as you can see here in this slide. So we have a translator, we have testers, we have documentation writers, we have event organizers, we have front-end people, so all those people that kind of make things flashy, and then we have the people who make things pretty, which are our graphic designers. And of course, not to forget, we have the support people. So people who answer questions in the community, or maybe even just at their organizations. We also have a security guard, who are community members or just InfoSec researchers who let us know about vulnerabilities so that we can fix those. And we have community members, and there are lots of them, who just give us ideas of what we could put into Mahara, what could be developed, and also those that report bugs, and these are our ninjas. Colin, we do not yet have any Mahara certification. Catalyst does offer training, but we have not yet looked into a certified training. That is still on our roadmap to see how we can make this happen. But we can definitely talk with you further about that if you have any ideas around it. And I've already mentioned that we have a lot of users in the community that also organize events and work together. And while this map may look pretty blank still, or pretty gray of the areas where there's no green, this is actually a little bit misleading. Because here I just wanted to show you in which areas we have dedicated Mahara user groups that meet on a regular basis. So, for example, in the United States, we have MAC, which is Mahara User Group, not to be confused with MAC, which can also mean Moodle User Group. And that user group is based in New York, but actually does operate worldwide, because most of the sessions that are being organized throughout a year are held online, so that anybody can participate. Oftentimes, Mahara users also meet at Moodle, and so that's why Canada is also in green. And then we even have 3 dedicated Mahara user groups in the United Kingdom, namely Mahara, which is the Scottish one, Maxi, which is Mahara user group South England, and the latest one is MUM. But not what you think. It stands for Mahara Users Midlands. Then we also have a very active community in France, who has been organizing events, Mahara conferences for a number of years already. We have a user group in Germany that also organizes conferences around Mahara regularly. There's going to be the Francophone Mahara Hui this year in Switzerland. Austria is involved in a number of European projects. And for very many years, there has been a Mahara conference also in Japan. And then we have Magos in Australia, so Mahara User Group Australia, and we have the Kiwi Mag Group over here in New Zealand. And while these are very regional Mahara user groups, Mahara is actually used around the world on every continent but Antarctica, as far as I know. And a lot of people also from one user group participate in the other and check in what other people are doing in order to learn from each other. And we have regular events, and if you want to take a look, you can find them on mahara.org/events, and can even subscribe to the calendar feed if you'd like to have those automatically added to your calendar so you don't have to hunt them down all the time. And we are in the fortunate position that many of our events do happen online, or that they are being recorded so that everybody can benefit from the knowledge that others have shared and can learn from what's going on around the places in other parts of the world. Another good resource, and I'm putting that into the chat, is our newsletter that comes out every 3 months. So it's a quarterly newsletter, 1st of January, 1st of April, 1st of July, and 1st of October. We've had this since 2011, and that is really a very nice place where organizations or even individual users can showcase what they do with the software, how they use it, how it has helped them with their learning, with teaching, or even outside of the formal education context, and also for anybody to highlight their events and development work. Because a community, and in particular an open source community, open source software community, depends on its users and really lives through its users, and they allow us to see what they do with the software and still make it relevant to continue working on it. Mahara also has a partner network, and last year we revamped our partner program so that we are now having 2 strands. One is for business partners and one is for supporters. And supporters can be any organization or even individuals who are more actively involved in Mahara. And business partners is generally those that do have some business interests that offer services like hosting, design, development, training, and so on. And with that partner network, we do want to also show the community that it is not just Catalyst that that is involved in the community, even though we do the majority of the work in it, but that it is also supported by others. And it is also a way for us at the core project to engage a number of already active people more in the community and allow them to, and give them also a space where they can showcase what they have been doing, how they are working with it, and honoring their contributions as well. And so if you have any questions that we can't answer today, or if you'd like to discuss specific projects, then please do feel free to send me an email or ask me on Twitter, and we can continue our discussion. Right now, we still have a few minutes time for any questions. And please do feel free to use your microphone if you want to.
I'd like to thank you for this wonderful presentation. Lots of
Thanks.
new information. I told you I personally have not used Mahara. I think this is going to be something I have to go explore. We'll leave the recording going for a few minutes if anyone else has any questions.
David, I can certainly try. Give me a second, because screen sharing can be a bit temperamental. So let me...
What browser are you using?
Oh, I'm using Firefox, and I did try it a couple of days ago, so it should work.
Okay.
I just need to make sure that I'm only sharing the region and not the entire screen. And then let's keep our fingers crossed that Java works. Okay, almost there. Now just... Oh, just a second. Now I can resize what I need to share. Okay, start sharing. So you should be seeing my screen now. Is that correct? Yep. Okay. So this is a local instance that I have, and so it was set up for the user menu. So I have a number of specific differences in here. But if you first go to your Mahara instance, you see the you see the home screen where you can provide a bit information about yourself and or about the instance, and can also provide links and resources. Normally, you also have a login box right here, but because I wanted to document this other way of logging in, I just have to click the login button, briefly log in, and of course it doesn't work. Let me see, try another one, just a second. Let's use a different account. And then once you're logged in, you see the three main areas of Mahara again. And these are the main actions that you can do on the instance. Namely, you can create content and your portfolio. You can then share it with others. And Mahara's permission framework is really extensive, so that you can share just with one person. You can share your portfolio with an entire group of people, with anybody who has an account, with anybody online entirely in the public, or with people via secret URL. So for example, an assessor, if they should have access to your Mahara site or to your portfolio, but can't actually get access to your instance. And then you have the third aspect, which is more of the social area, where you can engage with other people in group activities, create group portfolios, have discussion forums to work together. Oh, and if you have any questions right now, since I'm sharing my entire screen, I can't see the chat box. So anybody with a microphone, Carrie or David or anybody, please feel free to interrupt me and ask me the question so that I can answer it. And so if we look at creating a portfolio, what we can do directly, we can jump into portfolio and simply create a page, give it a title, and save that. And now I know why my Paula account didn't work, because I set it up to connect via Moodle. So, but anyway, now when you're on a page and in the edit mode, you have lots of possibilities for creating content. You can just add a text box, you can add an image, or you can also upload files that you've already have on your laptop or otherwise computer, and make a PDF visible. You can also embed media, or you can also put YouTube video in there, or your presentation files. You can write journal entries and also share personal information. So let's just briefly start with an image. So we drag an image in, and this is all done via drag and drop. And you have places where you can put it, but can then later on also change the layout. And you can either upload an image directly in here, or you can select one that you had already uploaded earlier. So let me just select one here. And the nice thing is, if the image is bigger than the area that you've selected, it actually makes it fit the entire block. When it's smaller, then of course it's only displayed in that size, but bigger images will adapt to the width of your column that you have, so that it also works in responsive mode. And now if I wanted to add some text to it, I can do that either above or below. Let's put it here. And again, I get an edit screen where I can enter my text. And I don't even need a block title if I don't want to have a heading. So let's just briefly look at what this looks like. So I have my title for the page, and then my text and my picture. Anybody who has access to this page will be able to leave comments if you enable that. And I can also submit the portfolio directly here in Mahara, or if I have the Mahara assignment submission plugin installed on Moodle, I can go into Moodle and select that portfolio for my assignment. But so far, everything that I've done is only available to myself. So what I need to do, I need to share that portfolio with others so that other people can actually view it. And so the page that I created is iMoot, and we see that currently nobody has access to it. So the cover letter is available to all registered users, and my profile page is also available to registered users, but iMoot not yet. So I can click the Edit Access icon and then select with whom I want to share the portfolio. So either the public, registered users, friends, or even just specific groups. Could also put a date in from when until when I want to share it, and can then simply click the Save button, and my page is now available to anybody who is in that group. I can also see which pages have been shared with me or which portfolios. When I go to Shared with Me, I can either search for them or I can simply see them in here and then click on them. So I don't have to remember who has shared something with me, but I can just search for that portfolio and take a look at it. So let me just briefly switch. Diljo, I'm using the default theme. Are there specific types of Moodle activities that can be exported to the Mahara portfolio? Let me just briefly stop the screen sharing. No screen share. Yep. Just a second. I'll go back to that slide. There are certain activities that you can use, Sarah. And the built-in ones are assignment files and form, post, and glossary entries. The chat can also be exported, and you would do that by allowing the moving of portfolio content to Mahara in the settings for Mnet. And if, as I said earlier, plugin developers allow their moving of content also to the portfolio, then that can be done as well. Do I know a particular theme that works well on Mac or browser that works with Mahara version 15 or 4.1? All themes that are available in Mahara itself do work on Mac and Mac browsers. But up to Mahara 15.04, only the default theme was responsive. All other themes that were built into Mahara Core were not responsive, so did not adapt to the screen size that you had available. They are under the link that I provided for the themes. Let me find it briefly again. These ones here, there is also a list of additional themes that people have created, and some of those are also for versions prior to 15.10, and some are also responsive or special, especially created with accessibility guidelines in mind to allow for high contrast. Briefly speaking about accessibility, because that is becoming more and more important for universities, government organizations, and everybody else, is that Mahara is WCAG 2 accessible, WCAG 2.0, level AA accessible, which is generally the level that you are required. Some areas in Mahara are even AAA accessible. And that means that you can use it with your keyboard. Screen readers can use Mahara, and anybody with other assistive devices can also work with it. There are still very few areas in Mahara that. Oh yes, Carrie, please do so. And there are some areas in Mahara, in particular in the administrative area, that we still need to improve on for the accessibility, but those are generally small things only. The wiki page that I just posted for you, there you can find information about our accessibility guidelines, as well as links to some of the open issues. And if you are interested in accessibility or work in that area and find other things that we should be looking into, please do let us know.
If I could just interrupt, Kristina, I just want to say
sure, Larissa.
Again. You guys can stay and continue chatting, but I need to close the recording so I can get my next room set up.
Okay, sure.
On behalf of the iMoot team for this wonderful presentation, and I look forward to learning more about Mahara, as I'm sure everyone else is.
Thank you, Carrie, very much.
I'm going to stop the recording now, okay?
Okay, thank you.